Hello, my name is Kyra Wright, and for Unit 16 in my BTEC film course, I have created a 5-episode editing guide to editing for young filmmakers. These 5 videos centre around several different ways that will help your editing development in Adobe's editing platform, Premiere Pro CC 2019. This mini-series of student-produced videos for students will hopefully lead to a greater understanding of the techniques of Premiere Pro, with examples that will make your projects feel more professional and well-produced. In the first episode, I'll be explaining the basic principles of editing, the purpose of understanding editing, and how editing is developed over time. To begin this episode, I will be providing you with a brief history of editing. Over time, editing has changed a lot. It all began back in 1901 when Edwin Porter showed the creators of cinematography, the Lumiere brothers, that film didn't have to be shot in one long clip, and one can cut a clip and stick them together to form the first record of jump cuts. This is called what we now refer to as analog editing. Due to this change, films began to last several minutes and film studios were created for the production of short films. This resulted in editing becoming a profession that was highly respected. Everything changed in 1963 when Ampex Corp created the VTR editing software, which enabled the editor to view the raw clips whilst the VTR recorded the shots. However, in 1970, the main break came through with the creation of the CMX 600. This allowed more than 5 minutes to be stored in one disc, the only disadvantage being that it didn't cope well with fades and dissolves, only providing basic editing techniques. With the modern technology that we have today, editing is advanced to a level where directing can be done in the editing process, the most famous report being George Lucas's involvement with the editing of the original Star Wars trilogy from 1973 to 1983. As of recent years, software has become available to everyone, including amateur and student filmmakers. The role of an editor is a simple process but rather difficult to master. However, this should not scare anyone away from it. Editing is a form of film production that is a highly rewarding part of the process. As an editor, your job is to make sure that the film comes together and tells a story. To begin with, let's consider the basic requirements that an editor would need to consider when accepting the job as an editor on a professional film project. Firstly, one must understand that the thought process for editing should begin as soon as the planning stages. This helps to keep the continuity of the film fluid and provides a final vision for how the film would look when it comes to the final cut. A basic requirement of understanding should be of the varied camera angles and movement as well as the swift steps between shot sizes. Don't be afraid to cut clips from the film if they don't feel necessary. Although you might be proud of your clips, if they aren't necessary, don't use them. At the end of the day, the most important element and main purpose of editing is to produce the final cut of the film and release it to the consumer market for mass audiences to enjoy. However, considering this, you should never delete your clips unless you are completely sure that you won't have to use them for the final project of your editing process. When looking at fast-paced action or sci-fi films like Star Wars: The Force Awakens and comparing it to the slow tranquility of something like Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, you can see a clear difference in editing. Star Wars uses quick jump cuts in action sequences, and Lady Bird uses slower jump cuts, lingering on the scene for a lot longer. This makes them both impactful, due to each genre differing from the other. This can be seen on different films across the industry. Although it begins as a separate entity of film production, the addition of score and soundtrack ensures that you get a bridge of music over sections that require it. This may only be applied when necessary to create a certain tone depending on how well the scene works with the music. Take this scene from Drive as an example of the correct way to use music. Overall, the basic principles of editing require knowledge of the film and direction. Editing requires a carefully produced line of editing techniques that seamlessly integrate raw media together to create a story that the screenwriter produced and the director shot. An editor must keep track of the bigger picture and understand that a film requires careful attention as a whole. You shouldn't get caught up in one stage of the editing process, so much so that you require more time to complete the film in its post-production stage. In the following episode, I will be introducing you to Premiere Pro and addressing the very basics of the platform. episode, I will be explaining the basic steps of editing. For example, file naming and saving protocol, as well as importing clips, how to create and manage your timelines, and developing your understanding of folder management. Beginning with the first thing you do when you have collected your raw clips together from your memory card to your hard drive, USB stick or desktop. Personally, I would suggest saving your clips into 2 different areas to ensure that your clips have been backed up to make sure you do not lose any of them. You must then label your clips so you as an editor can understand which clip is which and do not get confused with which clip should be used in which scene of your film or project. Not only does it make it easier for you, but it makes it a clearer timeline. Speaking of, let's continue on to Premiere Pro and understanding the timeline. When you open Premiere Pro, you will be asked to introduce a new project. Once you click it, it will then ask you to name your project. For purposes, I will be labelling mine Editing Tutorial, but you can choose to call yours whatever suits you. Once Premiere Pro officially opens, you will be faced with a screen like this one. Although it seems confusing, once you get to know the system, it's as easy as riding a bike. So let's address the topic of importing clips. The way I like to do it is the drag and drop option. If you open your computer and select the destination of your raw clips, you will be able to drag and drop them into the project section that you can see on the bottom left section of my screen. For viewing purposes, I suggest collecting all of your clips that you might use in your project and placing them together. Now, as you can see, the project browser seems messy and unorganised. Depending on your clips, you can collect them into what Premiere Pro calls a new bin. To do this, right-click on your mouse over the project section of your screen and click New Bin. You can name your bin whatever you want. Once your files are collected in the folder, you can begin editing. Drag your clip into the timeline on the right to begin this process. Once you have done this, it will show your clip on the timeline and its overall duration. This will give you the freedom to do whatever you wish with your clip and begin editing. As this is only a basic tutorial and the effects episode is within episode 5, I will be showing you the basics of editing and how to perform jump cuts in clips. I commonly refer to the razor tool showcased in the line of tools to your left of your timeline. The razor tool splits your clips in certain areas if you're choosing as shown. This ensures for a clean cut that results in a jump cut from one scene to the other. The scene can be deleted or scrubbed as shown by holding the left mouse button and dragging across to delete the sequence up until where your desired stopping point is. Moving on to the final stage, when you are pleased with your sequence and wish to save your project, click the File button and then come down to Export, then Media, then you'll be given this screen. Make sure that your format is in H.264 for the best quality visuals at 1080p. This will automatically associate itself with a match score, high bitrate, which is what it's supposed to do. Below the comments section, you will see a blue title named after your first imported clip. Change this to whatever title suits your project and make sure that it is saved in your desired destination by clicking on it and saving the file with the correct name in the right place. Once you've located a destination for your final project, you should make sure that both export video and export audio have been ticked and accepted. This marks the end of your rendering process. You should then click the export button to export your sequence in MP4. This will take a few minutes depending on the length of your projects, but will automatically be saved in your destination in time. Overall, the basic techniques in Premiere Pro are simple to understand once they've become familiar. In the next episode, I will be explaining the terminology used to address the system and the conventions of different editing styles.
In this episode, I will be explaining terminology and language, placing careful focus upon conventions, techniques, and styles of editing. This episode of my mini-series will mainly be focused on running through different names for different tools and elements of Premiere Pro and what to address them as. In alphabetical order, here are the definitions of some important terms when addressing Premiere Pro, taken from the Adobe glossary of terminology. The aspect ratio is addressed as the ratio of an image's width to its height. For example, a standard video display has an aspect ratio of 4:3. Most motion pictures use the more elongated aspect of 16:9. Capture means the process of transferring source video from a camcorder or tape deck to a computer. If the source video is analog, the capture process converts the video to digital. The chroma key removes an area of specific colour. This effect is often used during newscasts to insert a weather map behind a meteorologist. A codec is a device or program that uses algorithms to compress video and sound files, making them easier to work with and store, and to decompress files for playback. Colour correction is the process of altering the colour of video, especially if it was shot under less than ideal conditions, such as a low light. A J-cut is an edit in which the audio starts before the video, giving the video a dramatic introduction. Letterboxing is a technique used to preserve the original aspect ratio of a motion picture when played on a TV. Letterboxing adds black bars to the top and bottom of the screen. Matte, or mask as it's more commonly known, is a transparent area of an image, typically defined by a graphic shape or a blue screen background. Preview files are files that store information about tracks and effects in a project. Preview files are created during the rendering process and stored on a hard drive. They save time during the final export of a movie because the video edition application can use the information in the preview files rather than rendering clips again. The act of transforming means changing the position of objects by moving, rotating, aligning, or distributing them. From the Annenberg Learner website, I found some basic definitions of different styles of editing that would be useful to know and understand. To begin with, a cut. It's a visual transition created in editing in which one shot is instantaneously replaced on a screen by another. Continuity editing creates an action that flows smoothly across shots and scenes without jarring visual inconsistencies. Cross-cutting is the cutting back and forth between two or more lines of action, indicating that they are happening simultaneously. A dissolve cut is a gradual scene transition. Editing as a whole can be described as the work of selecting and joining together shots to create a finished feature. Errors in continuity are disruptions in the flow of a scene, such as a failure to match action or the placement of props across shots. An establishing shot is normally taken from a great distance or from a bird's eye view. This establishes where the action is about to occur. Eyeline match comes from the matching of the eye lines between two or more characters. A fade is a visual transition between shots or scenes that appear on screen as a brief interval with no picture. The editor fades one shot to black and then fades into the next. The final cut is used to represent the finished edit of a film, which is approved by the director and the producer. An iris is visible on screen as a circle, closing down over or opening upon the shot. A jump cut is a cut that creates a lack of continuity by leaving out parts of the action. The motion is swift and jumps from one scene to the other in no time. A matched cut is a cut joining two shots whose compositional elements match, helping to establish strong continuity of action. A montage is compiled of scenes whose emotional impact and visual design are achieved through the editing together of many brief shots. A rough cut is the editor's first go at assembling the shots of the film before polishing the final cut. A sequence shot is a long shot that extends for an entire scene or sequence, not using any editing. Shot reverse shot editing is usually used when two characters are caught in conversation, alternating between over-the-shoulder shots and showing each character in a mid-shot. And finally, a wipe is visible on screen as a bar, travelling across the frame, pushing one shot into the next one. Those were some of the basic modes of terminology that should be made known to young filmmakers interested in understanding the language of Premiere Pro. In the next segment, I will be exploring the auditory elements of both Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition. In this episode, I will be explaining audio manipulation on both Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2019 and Adobe Audition CC 2019, including the addition of soundtracks, voiceovers, and soundbites. Both Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition link closely with each other, even linking directly when right-clicking on an audio clip. Adobe Audition allows the user to remove background noise on voiceovers and edit music seamlessly. I'll begin with an introduction on Adobe Audition. To begin with, drag your audio clip from either Premiere Pro or just a raw file onto the timeline, and it should bring up the waves to your file. You should then select a small amount of white noise from the file, and then go to Effects, where a drop-down menu will show you several different options. You should then go to Noise Reduction/Restoration, and select it, which will bring you to a button labelled Noise Reduction, with Process in brackets. Click the Noise Reduction button and it will bring you to a similar menu, with your soundbite in it. This will allow you to click the button that reads Capture Noise Print, then Ctrl-A to select the whole clip, which will remove all of the white noise. This will then remove all of the white noise from the background of the entire clip. On Premiere Pro, the addition of soundtrack comes from the drag and drop option of downloaded clips, which is created in the exact same way as you would drag your clips into Premiere Pro. I edit most of my music on Premiere Pro. The way I go about editing is choosing where I want to cut my clip and zooming in as close as possible. This ensures that each of the sound waves is singled out, and we can view the song's beat pattern, so the songs can link together cleanly. To make this even smoother, we can connect the two together using the merger tool, which cleanly blends the two clips together to create the final audio clip as shown. You can make several layers and apply them to different audio, which gives you a creative freedom of your audio clips. For example, upon creating one of my trailers for my media piece, I used overlays of voiceover on the top layer and applied music to the bottom. Soundtrack and score is easy to place behind an audio track of someone talking. This can be adjusted by right-clicking the imported clip and changing the audio adjustments to raise or lower the volume of the audio. This is a simple element, But what if you want to alternate between vocals only, instrumental only, and both together in the official audio? This can also be done on Premiere Pro through the use of simple zooming and layering as well as the razor tool. Import your instrumental track underneath the vocals only track or the original audio to make sure they are beat perfect in the ways that they line up. If you use the razor tool to split one of them down the middle and remove a section of the song that you don't want, you can delete then more of the clip by using the razor again and removing the section you don't want. Personally, I would use the blending tool. When you right click on the end or the start of the cut and blend the two smoothly together to form one track which is needed for your creation. I did this for my trailer that I created for my A2 coursework. Auditory elements are easy to apply to a creation because of the simplicity of Premiere Pro's creative space. In the next 2 to 3 minute clip, I will be providing an example as to how I created my audio of my trailer and how it came out in the end.
There's a thin line between doing good for bad intentions and doing bad for good intentions. Recently, I've come to understand this. All I ever wanted was to do the right thing. My name is Paige Walker, and this is the story of how I changed history.
Paige, do you have a minute? Your grades have been slipping from last year. I'm a bit worried about you, so I want to help you.
But I have a history book, I don't understand.
Just use it wisely.
Please can you take out your essays on Wuthering Heights? What's this?
It's my assignment, sir.
I think you might have your head in the wrong class, Miss Walker. I know what this Macbeth is.
I don't think you understand what that book is capable of.
That's the thing, I do. Don't you see? If this book can erase Shakespeare, then what else can it do?
So, I'm not real? We're not real?
No, you are, but we're just living a different reality to the one we were living yesterday.
The global impact of World War III are still in play as the Greater German Reich fails to control fascist Italy.
I don't know what this is, but I want it out of my life.
I can't do that. This book, it was given to me. It has to be you.
Just tell me what this thing is.
I don't understand why you've told us this. You could go back in time and take credit for anything. Heck, you could make sure the Emoji Movie was never made.
Is that the one where Patrick Stewart plays crap?
Yeah.
In this fifth and final episode of my editing guide to editing for young filmmakers, I will be wrapping up this series with a short yet descriptive explanation of green screens, effects, backgrounds and text, using terminology accurately and efficiently. Beginning with green screens, or blue screens. Beginning with green screens and or blue screens. So, I suppose the majority understand what a green or blue screen is, whilst also understanding that there is no difference between the use of a green screen or a blue screen, basing it only on personal preference and the costume choice for your model or character. To get rid of a clip with green screen as the backdrop, you must add your clip with green screen into the sequence and drag the Ultra key from the selection at the top of Premiere Pro, listed under the Effects section, onto your clip. You should then select the eyedropper tool next to the menu, as it has just been brought up on the left side of your desktop from the Effects column, which will then ask you to select the part of the screen you wish to remove from the raw clip. You should proceed onwards by clicking the green or blue screen, depending on your clip and the colour that has been selected by the eyedropper, behind your object, and this will automatically remove the green screen to a rough cut. This will then leave it up to you to adjust the intensity of your clip that you can change to fit your sequence that you've been working on, which will give the clip a sharper image and a softer edge. Next, we will cover the addition of effects and backgrounds. This is a wide range of elements, so I'll only cover the basics that you might need as a filmmaker creating projects on Premiere Pro. Background removal has been covered, so what to put behind the screen that just shows a black background? It's your choice. You can put any image or video below the video or image that has been removed off the green or blue screen, and it will appear where the green or blue screen has been removed. This will allow creative inspiration to flow in the creation of your project. Adjust the background to the motion that you want, and the background will set itself in place. You can adjust the opacity and saturation to your liking, but make sure that the background layer is underneath your green or blue screen clip. The effects, when regarding the application of text and effects, overall consists of a wide range of elements that can be used depending on the project. These range from typography to colour filter effects that can easily be applied, as shown in the graphics section at the top, and the colour section next to it, where you'll have access easily to the text and different fonts and animations, and the difference of the colour wheel and/or curve. The application of text, graphics and of background alterations allow for easy application when discussing Premiere Pro's attributes. The depiction of the font is up to you upon selecting the text and what means to your product, making it fitting into the project by deciding from a wide range of fonts that Adobe provides. You can download effects from YouTube, such as I did when creating the lightning strike in my A2 trailer. By changing the background and overall setting of the video, you can remove the black and white sections by selecting the lighten or darken section that applies the clip to a transparent layer, almost like a PNG file if the video was to be a still image. This is easily applied onto the timeline and will make your project seem more realistic and professional. Thank you for watching and taking in the information provided about Adobe's editing software.